The Conservator by Irwin Montrose. The British Museum slept behind its thick stone facade. Beneath layers of history and centuries of dust, the conservation labs buzzed with the faint, constant hum of filtered air. A kingdom of climate control and archival vigilance, where a careless fingerprint could undo lifetimes of preservation. At 6:43 on a Friday morning, a fire suppression sensor triggered a silent alarm in Lab C. By the time the security team arrived 12 minutes later, the door was locked from the inside. Inside, behind reinforced glass and stainless steel counters, Eleanor Voss was already dead. The incident report was clinical: toxic inhalation due to accidental solvent exposure. No signs of a struggle, fume hood inactive, door bolted. The museum's PR team released a respectful statement by midday. Grief counseling was offered to staff. Lab C was cordoned off. The world moved on. But one man did not.
She always double-checked the hoods, every damn time.
Oliver Reed stood just outside the lab's perimeter tape, his visitor lanyard flapping in the weak airflow. Forensic archivist, contractor, outsider, and now, perhaps the only one still asking questions. Eleanor had been brilliant, exacting, unpopular, maybe, but honest. He'd worked with her 2 years ago on the Kensington Marble project. She'd spotted a forgery in the chain of custody documents that no one else wanted to see, and now she was dead.
Sir, I'll need you to step back. Lab C is sealed pending clearance. Just looking. No intention of breathing the air.
The officer said nothing, just tightened his stance. Oliver took 2 reluctant steps back, eyes still fixed on the sterile room behind the glass. A pair of nitrile gloves lay discarded on the stainless steel bench. The solvent cabinet was ajar, and in the far corner, half shielded by a toppled wheeled chair, Eleanor's notes, or what was left of them. He didn't trust the report. Eleanor didn't make mistakes like that. The ventilation system didn't simply fail, and the solvents she was using, he knew the lot, could knock a person out in minutes, but only if they were exposed, intentionally. At 11 a.m., the department heads met behind closed doors. Oliver wasn't invited, but he knew the room. The walnut conference table, the high-backed chairs, the subtle power games.
We must remain cautious in how we phrase internal communications. The incident has been ruled non-criminal. Speculation will only harm Eleanor's legacy and the department's reputation. She was thorough. Everyone here knows it. You can't just wave this away. I'm not waving, I'm directing. There's a difference. And as acting director of collections, I expect unity. Until the investigation is formally closed, we refrain from making unsupported claims. Is that clear?
Theo's mouth tightened, but he said nothing more. Across the table, a legal advisor made brief notes and nodded approvingly. They had a strategy: keep it internal, protect the institution. Oliver watched from the hallway as the meeting dispersed. Ren passed him without acknowledgement, heels sharp against the marble floor. Theo lingered.
She came to me 2 weeks ago, said she'd found something, wouldn't say what, told me to be careful. What kind of something? I thought she meant gossip, politics, but now.
Oliver nodded slowly. He didn't need to hear more. Not yet. There was a pattern forming, and he'd seen it before. Whispers, reputations, silence dressed up as protocol. If Eleanor had found something worth dying for, he was going to find it too. Later that afternoon, in a shadowed corner of the museum's lower archives, Oliver unlocked his old workstation. The air was dry, the lights unforgiving. He pulled up the digital chain of custody records for the Raphael sketches, Eleanor's last logged assignment. A minor discrepancy blinked at him from the screen. A date mismatch, just 2 days before she died. Oliver leaned closer.
And there it is.
The painting had been officially received in 1989, but Eleanor's notes listed its arrival as 1991, 2 years apart, different couriers, different authentication tags, same accession number. One of them was forged, and somebody had gone to great lengths to make it stay buried. Oliver reached for his notebook and began to write. Eleanor Voss may have died alone in Lab C, but she hadn't died in vain. Not yet. The archives in Sublevel 3 weren't technically off-limits, but few ventured there without purpose. The air tasted of old glue and silverfish traps. Oliver moved silently beneath flickering LED strips, flanked by rolling shelves and humidity monitors ticking like metronomes. He didn't belong here anymore, not officially. But Eleanor's last notes led him here, and he wasn't about to walk away.
Sketches in case G43. Accession log cross-checked with export license, except the license is dated 2 years after the supposed acquisition. That's not a delay. That's fabrication.
The Raphael sketches weren't just some dusty portfolio. They were quietly valued at over £1.7 million, donated, untraceable back to private hands, or so the museum claimed. Oliver scanned the case barcode and unlocked the digital archive attached. Eleanor had made annotations, unusually detailed. She'd questioned the sealing resin, flagged inconsistencies in fiber pigmentation, and most importantly, she'd referenced a voice file. It wasn't stored in the system, but she'd left a breadcrumb, a folder path hidden within a metadata comment. He followed it, password protected, naturally.
She always used art terms, try chiaroscuro.
Access granted. The file was dated 3 nights before her death.
If you're hearing this, I've either handed over the file to Ren, or I've changed my mind. If it's the latter, then something went wrong. The Raphael sketches are wrong. Everything about them is off. Provenance papers don't match the conservation history. The surfaceware contradicts the documented restoration. I believe they were swapped in the late 80s, possibly a private forgery passed off as the original. I told Theo. I told him not to say anything yet. He thinks I'm imagining things, but the more I dig, the worse it gets.
Oliver sat frozen. Eleanor didn't get spooked easily. For her to record something like this, he checked the server timestamp. The file had been accessed once after it was created, 5 hours before her death.
Someone else heard this.
From the hallway came footsteps. Light, cautious. Oliver killed the audio and turned. A young woman in facilities overalls paused near the stairwell. She didn't meet his eyes, but didn't leave either.
You knew her? Eleanor? We worked together. Did you? I clean the labs. After hours. Sometimes I hear things I'm not supposed to.
Oliver stepped closer. She flinched, instinctively glancing behind her.
3 nights ago, I heard her arguing with Dr. Ren in Lab C, late, maybe midnight. Ren said something about shutting it down. Eleanor said, "You can't bury this, not again."
Oliver's spine straightened. That conversation wasn't in any official log, and Ren had said she was in Oxford that night.
Did you tell anyone else? No, it's not my job. I don't want trouble, but... She looked scared.
Oliver nodded. The woman slipped away, disappearing into the shadows, just like everything else in this place. He returned to his desk with a singular purpose: trace the forgery. The provenance file for the Raphael sketches listed a prior donor, Bartholomew Quince, a collector based in Bristol, died in 1992. But Eleanor had left a note. Quince never owned the sketches, track via Leipzig archives, item ref LSQ 390. Leipzig, German Export Authority. Digital logs went online in 2007. Oliver cross-referenced the code. The original Raphael sketches had been flagged as missing in 1988, reported stolen. If the museum's copy was donated in 1989, then it was never real. It was a laundered forgery, and Eleanor had been one step from proving it.
So this place has a £1 million fake hanging in the West Wing, and no one noticed, or no one wanted to.
He heard a door creak. Footsteps, not staff, too deliberate. Oliver shut the terminal and moved away fast, down a second corridor, past the climate cabinets. No cameras down here. A figure appeared in the reflection of the glass display case, broad-shouldered, dark jacket, walking slow, deliberate. He wasn't wearing a badge.
Shit!
Oliver ducked behind the oversized cart, heart pounding. The man didn't follow, just stood at the junction, looked left, then back, and walked on. Not security, and not lost. Oliver waited in silence until the lights returned to stillness. Then he slipped out, gripped his bag tight, and climbed toward daylight. Whoever had killed Eleanor wasn't done cleaning up. Archived note, Eleanor Voss.
Friday, 2018. If this file uploads correctly, it means I've decided not to trust anyone in the museum's official channels. Not Ren. Not Theo. Not even HR. I used to love this place. Thought it was sacred. That the work mattered. That preservation was about truth. But I was wrong. It's a theater. The exhibits are the stage. The curators, the actors, and the donors, they write the script. I found the Leipzig record last month. It was almost an accident. A cross-reference failed to verify provenance. Some dusty link between a Bavarian invoice and our Raphael sketches. That's all it took. One smudge, and the illusion started to crack. Then came the noise, office doors closing as I passed, suddenly off keynotes, notes going missing. Ren called me in for my well-being. She knows, or she suspects. And Theo, oh Theo, brilliant and blind. He doesn't want this to be true. Maybe he even helped once. He told me to leave it alone, said the museum had political layers I didn't understand, said I was chasing ghosts. But it's not ghosts, it's theft, it's lies, it's forgery at the institutional level, and someone very real, wanted it buried. So I've encrypted everything. Chain of custody logs, scanned docs, even audio clips of Theo contradicting himself. I've created 3 backups. If anything happens to me, find Oliver Reed. He's the only one who looked at truth like it mattered. If I die in a lab accident, know this, I didn't forget to turn on the hood. Whatever's down here, it's been waiting years. I just happened to turn the light back on.
The museum was quieter on Saturdays. No school groups, no guided tours, just scattered tourists and skeleton staff. Perfect for someone cleaning up loose ends. Oliver scanned in at the south entrance, his credentials temporarily restored by IT for audit purposes. A small favor courtesy of an old friend in facilities. He didn't ask questions. Oliver's goal was clear: verify the digital copy of Eleanor's forgery evidence. The voice note had mentioned 3 backups. He'd found only 1, which meant someone else might find the others first.
Second copy. If she followed protocol, she would have stored it off-system.
He used Eleanor's old credentials, still cached in a forgotten user profile, to navigate the restricted server logs. No luck. Then he remembered her habit, naming decoy folders with museum exhibit codes.
Try E3 Medusa.
Access granted. Inside, 2 PDFs, 5 audio files, and 1 encrypted zip archive titled Donor Chain All to One. He downloaded everything to a flash drive, but the second he unplugged it, the fire alarm triggered. Red lights flashed. Sirens screamed through the archives. Oliver swore and stuffed the drive in his coat.
Attention, fire containment mode. Exit immediately. Doors will seal in 40 seconds.
Oliver bolted for the stairwell but stopped short. Smoke. Real smoke, not synthetic alarm mist. He crouched low, yanked his scarf over his mouth. The fire wasn't in the archives. It was upstairs. The source, Lab E, 2 floors above. It had been sealed after a chemical spill 6 months ago, supposedly empty. But now, someone had set it ablaze, and inside they found Theo Ramsey, unconscious, barely alive, pulled from the edge of the blaze with chemical burns and solvent exposure. He'd been inside, alone, no clearance, no explanation.
He's got acetone inhalation damage. Who the hell stores solvents in a sealed lab?
Oliver stood behind the cordon watching the gurney roll into the ambulance. First Eleanor, now Theo. Accident? Or someone trying to make it look that way? He turned and walked away, gripping the flash drive tighter in his pocket. Whatever was on this drive, someone was willing to kill to suppress it, and he was running out of time. Oliver barely slept. He had copied Eleanor's flash drive twice, one on a remote SSD stashed behind a heating panel, the other on a cloud drive under a fake login. Belt and braces. By 7:45, he was back at his flat in Southwark. He'd pulled the curtains, left the lights off. The kind of paranoia that creeps in slowly until it no longer feels like paranoia at all.
Let's see what she died for.
He inserted the flash drive. Inside the encrypted zip folder, a simple structure: voice memos, scanned certificates, donor chain notes, invoice trail, Leipzig Confidential. He opened the last file first. It was a 3-page dossier compiled by Eleanor. Dates, invoice copies, handwritten notes. At the top, Philip Grantham, Independent Antiquities Liaison, London, Berlin. Known aliases: Graham Phillips, F.G. Harker. Link to Bartholomew Quince Estate, Leipzig smuggling cases, 1987. Suspected laundering of Mesopotamian tablet sets via Geneva, 1992.
Christ, Eleanor, you really found something.
The Raphael sketches had been donated under Bartholomew Quince's name, but Eleanor had traced the actual shipment via Grantham, a fake transfer using a now-dissolved courier service whose warehouse records had been seized in a 1991 customs audit, Leipzig. And one document buried in a scanned invoice listed Margot Ren as the customs contact during her doctoral research abroad. This wasn't carelessness, this was orchestration.
I need someone else on this, someone Ren can't reach.
At 10:12 a.m., Oliver made a call from a burner phone. The voice on the other end was crisp, Scottish, and mildly impatient.
You're either in trouble or you've decided to apologize for last time. Let's say column A. I've got something you need to see. I'm sending a drive. No copies. Your eyes only. Oliver, are you on record for this? If I go on record, I won't make it to Monday.
Isla McRae was an independent provenance analyst, former Interpol advisor, former lover. They hadn't spoken in 2 years, but trust forged in fire doesn't go cold easily. He sent the encrypted file via private link with a cipher key hidden in a follow-up message referencing an old running joke, "Dinner at 47, you bring the wine." The encryption was so dense it would take even a seasoned analyst hours to parse. Good. He needed time. But when he returned from the postbox downstairs, he noticed something was wrong. The door to his flat was slightly ajar. He froze back flat against the wall, listened. Nothing. He stepped inside slowly. His laptop was gone, so was the external SSD. Nothing else touched. No drawers open, no mess. A surgical break-in. They hadn't taken money or cards or even his phone, just the data. He closed the door and sat in silence. It confirmed everything. Someone inside the museum was watching him, and they'd moved fast, too fast. His phone vibrated. Unknown number.
You've been very busy, Mr. Reed. I suggest you stop before you damage your reputation permanently. You know what was on that drive. I know you've made some very serious accusations based on circumstantial documents and a disgruntled employee's speculation. You're not staff, you're not authorized, and you're not bulletproof.
The line went dead. Oliver stared at the screen. She hadn't denied it. At 6:32 p.m., Isla McRae sent a voice message, one line.
This Grantham link is nuclear. Someone went to prison in Geneva over these artifacts. You're in the middle of something very old and very protected.
Oliver slumped into the armchair, staring at the darkened window. Eleanor had left him a trail. Grantham, Ren, the fake sketches, the real donor never existed, and now someone had broken into his home to erase it all. But they were too late because Isla had the files now, and tomorrow Oliver would go public, unless they stopped him first. Sunday brought rain, cold, repetitive, and cleansing, London's usual prelude to something worse. Oliver sipped burnt coffee by the corner window of a rented short-stay flat in Lambeth. His bag was packed, his phone disabled. He'd shaved his beard, swapped coats. One drive remained, the only verified copy. The second Isla sent confirmation, he was going to leak everything.
Oliver, it's real. The sketches were traced to a forgery studio in Leipzig active from 1985 to 1991. Grantham was a middleman. Ren signed off export clearance on at least 2 flagged pieces under a false university grant. I've triple-sourced it. If you sit on this, you're complicit. Get it out. Today. Right.
He drafted the email to the Observer, attaching a zipped dossier and a short write-up under a pseudonym, Dead Paint Never Lies. But just before clicking send, his burner phone lit up, unknown number. He hesitated, then answered.
Mr. Reed, you've made quite the mess. Thought you might enjoy a walk before you're silenced.
The line cut, no trace, no ID. Oliver stood slowly, his heart thumped behind his ribs. He backed away from the window and saw the reflection. A car, dark, idling across the street. He grabbed his bag and bolted for the fire escape. Metal clanged underfoot. He dropped 2 floors, landing hard on the gravel path behind the bins. The car engine roared. A black Audi surged around the corner. Oliver ran, cut through a side alley, turned, crossed. Behind him, the car skidded, accelerated, too fast for a warning.
Shit!
The bumper clipped his leg. He spun, hit the pavement, rolled behind a dumpster. Tires screeched, doors slammed, footsteps, then silence. By the time he pulled himself upright, the car was gone. So was his bag. But the drive wasn't in the bag, it was taped inside his sock. They weren't just trying to scare him now, they'd tried to end it. Theo Ramsey stirred in his hospital bed, a fractured rib, mild smoke inhalation, bandaged arms. He barely reacted when Ren entered, gloved and guarded.
Don't speak, just listen. I'm keeping your name out of it, Theo, but you need to stop talking to Reed. You're the one who should stop, he's got the files. You think you know how this works? You don't. You have tenure, a pension. Think about that. I should have stopped Eleanor. She knew too much, too fast.
Ren said nothing. She pulled her gloves tighter and walked out without another word. Back in hiding, Oliver limped down the rain-slick streets of Brixton. He called Isla from a payphone. One ring.
They tried to kill me. You're done now. No more field work. Let the press run it. No, not yet. Ren knows I've got it. I want to see her face when it drops. I want to watch it happen.
He stepped into the shadows of an empty train station, flash drive clutched in his hand. Tomorrow, the story would break. But tonight, someone else still had a move left to play.
They think I don't know what they whisper behind closed doors. Ruthless, disconnected. Margot would sell her own team for a donor dinner. They're not wrong, but they're not right either. The job isn't to tell the truth. It's to protect the institution. There is no museum without patronage. No patronage without prestige. No prestige without artifacts people want to believe are real. History in this world is not a fact. It's a narrative. I inherited a house built on unstable foundations. Before me, God, before Grantham. This place ran on undocumented acquisitions, misattributed artifacts, favors, and quietly laundered relics. Every museum does. They just don't admit it. Eleanor Voss was brilliant, thorough, dangerous. She didn't understand the stakes. The Raphael sketches were a gift, a controlled deception, one that gave us 2 grants, 3 international loans, and the quince wing. Take them away, the whole house shakes. She should have come to me. We could have fixed it. Adjusted records, sealed documents, created a re-review, and quietly decommissioned the piece. I've done it before. Nobody cares what gets removed, only what gets revealed. But no, Eleanor thought it was noble to burn it down. So I warned her, told her to stop. Then, well, I didn't kill her. Not directly, but I did leave the lock code unchanged. I knew she'd work late. I knew she wouldn't check the backup airflow if she was focused. I knew what chemicals she'd use. I just let the situation run. Sometimes, inaction is the cleanest action. Theo was an unfortunate casualty. He went digging, always so sentimental. Still, I left him alive. I'm not a monster, just a curator of risk. And as for Oliver Reed, he's an amateur with a grudge and a laptop. He never finished his contract here. He's not one of us. I gave him every chance to walk away. He refused, and now he's made this personal. Still, he's a threat, and threats are cataloged, contained, and if necessary, decommissioned. Just like artifacts with compromised origin. But this leak, this article, if it lands with full names, if Isla McRae validates it publicly, then even the trustees will have to take a side. And some of them, they were part of this. They won't go quietly. I'll deny everything. Say Eleanor was unstable, that Theo had a breakdown, that Oliver is bitter and opportunistic. The museum will survive. It always does. I've already spoken to Grantham. He's agreed to intervene if needed. History will remember what I allow it to remember. The rest, it can rot in storage.
The article dropped just after 5 a.m. It hit the digital front page of the Observer under the headline, Forgery in the Halls of Truth, the Raphael Sketches Scandal. Byline, Anonymous Cultural Whistleblower. By 6:30 it had been shared 12,000 times. The story detailed Eleanor's findings, chain of custody failures, forged provenance certificates, the Leipzig trail, the role of Grantham, the disappearance of key documents. It didn't name Margot Ren directly yet, but it named the museum, and that was enough. Oliver watched from a booth in a near-empty cafe, burner phone resting between 2 sugar packets. His eyes burned from lack of sleep, but the satisfaction was pure. The truth was out. Now came the counterstrike.
They just tried to get into my office. Lock was picked, nothing stolen, but definitely searched. Be careful. This isn't over. It never was.
At the British Museum, fire alarms triggered again. False this time. IT systems lagged, emails bounced. Margot Ren stood in her office, coat still on, eyes fixed on the screen. The trustees had called an emergency session. A full statement would be required within the hour.
Get legal and find Grantham.
But Philip Grantham wasn't answering his phone, because he was already waiting elsewhere. Oliver arrived at the secluded address in Belgravia. Isla had passed along the meeting invitation, unsigned, anonymous, but unmistakably orchestrated. Inside, leather chairs, wood paneling, silence thick as varnish. Waiting at the end of the corridor sat Philip Grantham.
Mr. Reed, or do you prefer whistleblower? You prefer blackmail or bribery first?
Grantham smiled without mirth.
You've done quite a thing. You've embarrassed an institution, damaged reputations, stirred ghosts better left asleep. They were never dead. Touché. Still, you have no idea what you've poked. This isn't about one sketch or one conservator's tragic accident. It's about national holdings, royal collections, diplomatic relics. You think that sketch was the only forgery we've ever curated?
He didn't answer. Grantham leaned forward, voice low and deliberate.
You're a talented man, Mr. Reed. You understand records. Let me offer you something better than martyrdom. A payoff? An offer. We bury this publicly. Quiet internal audit, no names, you get a permanent post, discretion, access, influence. And Eleanor? Eleanor made herself a liability. Don't follow her path.
Oliver stood slowly, jaw tight.
You're not worried about the sketch. You're worried about what else she found. I'm worried you think it matters.
Oliver turned and walked away without another word. He didn't need confirmation. He'd just seen the man behind the curtain. At 4:52 p.m., Isla McCrae received a couriered envelope with no return address. Inside, a single microfilm strip. She examined it under the lamp. Dozens of item codes. Most were from the early 1990s. One, dated July 1988, matched the accession code for a missing Assyrian tablet, gifted, from a now-defunct Lebanese collection. It had been declared destroyed in transit. It was now sitting in the British Museum's Middle East wing.
My God, Eleanor, you found all of it.
Oliver's exposé had opened a crack. But Eleanor's work, it threatened to collapse the vault, and someone was getting desperate to close it again. Flashback interlude, Eleanor's last day.
7:48 a.m., rain on the roof. Again, she hated that sound when it hit the glass in waves, like something trying to get in.
Eleanor Voss brushed lint from her coat and stepped into the service entrance of the museum. She'd slept 3 hours at most. Her mind had been looping the same lines of text, invoices, donor records, shipping inconsistencies. It didn't add up, which meant it was designed not to.
One more day, one more file. If I can lock the chain from Leipzig to Rennes, it's undeniable.
She keyed into Lab C using her personal code. It still worked. That worried her more than if it hadn't. Inside, silence, bleach, solvent, the hum of filtration. She was alone.
Come on, just give me one link, one clean trail.
She laid the forgery papers side by side, top layer, the donor intake form from 1989, falsified, she now believed. Middle layer, the customs tag from Leipzig dated 1991, real, wrong year. Bottom layer, the internal memo signed by Ren, dated 1990, before the official donation. It was a mess, a deliberate one.
You knew. You knew the real item hadn't arrived yet, and you still signed it into record.
By 11 a.m., she was recording voice notes, meticulously, calm but urgent. By noon, she emailed Theo. No reply. She tried again, this time with the subject, "This is serious. You said to leave it alone. I can't."
He won't answer. He doesn't want to be involved.
At 2:40 p.m., she saw Dr. Ren across the lobby. Their eyes met. Margot gave a slight nod. Polite, chilly. At 2:42, Eleanor's badge stopped working for the south stairwell.
That's not a system glitch.
By 3:10, her access to the central archive folder had been revoked pending review. She backed everything up to a drive in her coat pocket, then one on a flashcard taped beneath her desk drawer, then emailed Isla a single phrase, "Dinner at 47, you bring the wine."
That's 3 copies. That's all I can do.
At 5:36 p.m., Eleanor heard footsteps in Lab C's service corridor. She stood still. No knock, no voice, no security sweep. Just the soft shuffle of someone checking her door. Then silence.
Margot, no Grantham?
She waited until the sound faded. She locked the interior door from her side, turned on the fume hood, started preparing the surface test for the sketches one final time. She thought of her mother in Devon, of the school trip when she first saw the Elgin marbles and felt awed, not angry, of the first artifact she ever cleaned, a broken Sumerian comb, barely worth 200 pounds. Of Oliver, his quiet intensity, his stubborn sense of right and wrong. He'd listen, even if he didn't agree.
If this is the end of the road, let it be for something. Let it matter.
At 6:43 p.m., the airflow warning triggered. She turned, but too late. The solvent container had been moved, slightly. The airflow was off. She reached for the emergency button, but it had been disabled. She stumbled once, then the world tilted.
No.
She collapsed before she could make the door. The fume hood hummed blankly above her. The lab's lights stayed on for 2 more hours before security found her. But her words, her backups, were already out there, waiting to be found. The museum issued its first official statement at 9:03 a.m. We take allegations of provenance irregularity extremely seriously. An internal review is underway. The British Museum remains committed to transparency, scholarship, and the integrity of its collections. But damage control was already failing. News outlets swarmed. An MP demanded an inquiry. 3 known donors issued public withdrawals, and Dr. Margot Ren's office was shuttered, pending administrative leave.
Fine Grantham, get me that Zurich contact. I want this buried, not diffused buried.
But Philip Grantham was elsewhere. Isla McCrae arrived home to find her door ajar. Nothing broken. No alarm. She stepped inside, voice recorder already running.
I know you're here. Show yourself.
He emerged from the shadows of her study, elegant, deliberate.
Isla, brilliant as ever, though perhaps too loyal for your own safety. If you're here to threaten me, I'm already recording. Oh, I hope you do. When this becomes academic history, I'd like my tone preserved.
They circled each other like 2 scholars across a debate floor. Only the topic was life and death.
This isn't about forgery. It's about narrative stewardship. Do you think the Vatican discloses every artifact's origin, or the Louvre? You think truth has a clean chain of custody? I think dead women deserve justice. Eleanor was unstable. You of all people know that. She was precise, she had evidence, and you're here because you know it's coming down on your head.
Grantham's mask slipped just for a moment.
If you publish that microfilm, Isla, you will not walk away unscathed. Careers will burn. So will yours. Then light the match.
He left without another word. She bolted the door behind him. At Guy's hospital, Theo Ramsey sat propped upright in bed, pale and shaking. Oliver entered quietly, a digital recorder in hand.
You said Eleanor gave you something. A week before she died. Said she didn't trust digital backups. Told me to hide it in something no one would notice.
He reached into a brown paper bag on the tray. Pulled out a battered library book, The Ethics of Display. Inside, a false dust jacket concealing a mini cassette, labeled Raphael Deep File, Not for Shared Archive.
She knew this was bigger than even she could say aloud.
Oliver played the cassette through a digital converter, Eleanor's voice raw, tense.
This isn't just the Raphael. I found 6. 6 artifacts with identical accession anomalies, all tied to Grantham's shipping alias. The Assyrian tablet in the Middle East wing? Faked. The Coptic jar in Gallery 9? Bought, then forged backward into donation. I think Ren knew. I think she helped design the laundering timeline. It's like watching someone rewrite history in real time, and no one's stopping it.
Oliver closed his eyes. It was worse than he thought. This wasn't a forgery scandal. It was a curated fiction machine, built by scholars, funded by institutions, and protected by men like Grantham.
This cassette goes public tomorrow. She died thinking no one would listen. She was wrong.
The weight of centuries sat on lies. But Eleanor had cracked the foundation, and now it was time to bring the whole house down. By Monday noon, the foyer of the British Museum was flooded with cameras, microphones, live feeds, tripods angled like weapons. The museum had been backed into a corner. The trustees could no longer contain the storm, so they sent out a shield. A press spokesperson stepped up to the podium. Tired suit, neutral tie. Behind him, a projected statement. Independent review committee to investigate provenance integrity. What they didn't expect was that someone else had arrived early and brought evidence. Oliver and Isla stood just outside the side entrance, watching from a tablet as the conference streamed live. Oliver carried a flash drive. Isla held the cassette. They'd agreed on this the night before. If the museum wouldn't come clean, they would.
We don't get another chance after this. Then we don't need one.
At 12:18 p.m., Isla stepped through the crowd and walked directly to the podium. The press spokesperson froze. She didn't ask for permission.
My name is Isla McCrae, former Interpol provenance analyst, independent advisor to several EU heritage agencies. I have in my possession 6 matched accession records, forged between 1987 and 1992, tied to the Raphael sketches, the Assyrian tablet series, and the Grantham acquisition trail. Dr. Margot Ren signed internal memos suppressing donor discrepancies. Eleanor Voss, the conservator who died under suspicious circumstances, discovered this. Her findings were ignored, then buried.
Shouts, questions, flashes. The museum's PR man tried to speak. Isla raised the cassette.
This is her voice, her evidence, and we're turning it over to the Metropolitan Police today.
The fallout began immediately. News sites crashed under traffic. Ren's lawyer issued a terse denial. By 3 p.m., Scotland Yard had made contact with Museum Council. By 5, Grantham was seen boarding a private flight out of Farnborough. He never made it. The car meant to take him never arrived. He vanished between security gate and tarmac. CCTV failed. Logs wiped. He was gone. Oliver returned to his flat just after dusk. He moved slowly, exhausted, mentally frayed. He didn't see the envelope at first. It had been slid under the door, plain white, no markings. Inside, a single line of text typed and center-aligned. We preserve what matters, and we remember who tried to erase it. No signature.
So this is the end, then? No, this is the archive. The rest is still being cataloged.
She stepped inside, pale, tight-lipped. She held up her phone.
The BBC just got a second leak, an anonymous file matching Eleanor's voice with metadata from inside the trustee servers. You think Ren sent it? Or someone bigger, someone trying to shift blame? There's a war happening behind that facade, and the public's finally watching.
Oliver sat down slowly. The drive was gone, the museum was bleeding, but the story wasn't over.
Eleanor cracked the seal. You and I just broke the lock. And what's left underneath? The truth, or what's left of it.
The facade was breaking, the gallery lights still glowed, but behind every polished placard, beneath every celebrated artifact, lay a question. Who decides what survives, and more importantly, who decides what gets forgotten? Interlude, the trustee.
We were never appointed to protect individual artifacts. That's a quaint fantasy. We're here to protect the whole, the narrative, the scaffolding, the thing the public needs to believe is real.
Sir Adrian Westbury, OBE, chair of the British Museum's Board of Trustees, sat in a private reading room at the Athenaeum Club. He sipped black Darjeeling from a porcelain cup that predated Napoleon's exile. Outside, London's cultural elite scrambled like ants. Inside, he was still.
They always emerge eventually. The zealots, the truth chasers. They dig like rats through archival stone, convinced that revelation is revolution.
Eleanor Voss had been brilliant. He'd read her reports. He'd skimmed her papers before they were quietly suppressed. Oliver Reed? Less brilliant, more stubborn. The worst kind of memory, disillusioned loyalty.
I don't hate them. In fact, I pity them.
Because Sir Adrian remembered. The Cold War acquisitions, the panic around Middle Eastern collections after the Gulf War, the safe harbor policies that allowed artifacts to be relocated, then donated, then misattributed, intentionally, quietly, efficiently, to save them. Not for one man, for civilization.
The Vatican did the same. The Met, the Pergamon, even the Ashmolean. They just keep better secrets.
Eleanor's crime had not been discovery, it had been disruption. She'd bypassed hierarchy, triggered panic, forced hands. If she had come to them quietly, Sir Adrian might have helped her, guided her, but instead she recorded voice memos. She kept files. She pressed send.
Information is not neutral. It's a weapon, and once it's loosed, there are no hands clean enough to catch it.
And now the Raphael sketches were under forensic review. Entire donor trees were collapsing. A trustee had resigned. Margot Ren, poor woman, had been the first public sacrifice. Philip Grantham was off the grid, most likely already scrubbed and rerouted by someone deeper in the chain. But the fire wouldn't stop with them.
They think this is the rot. No, this is the foundation. And without it, the museum becomes an empty temple.
Sir Adrian reached into a leather briefcase and removed a narrow envelope. Inside, a list. 17 artifacts, each tied to forged or questionable origins, each one currently housed in high-profile galleries. He folded the paper and set it aflame in a marble ashtray.
The public cannot unknow, but we can redirect what they know.
In the end, history was never a book, it was a script. And men like Sir Adrian were its editors. Coordinates 47.3724 degrees N, 8.542 degrees E. Altitude 408 meters. Location, Zurich, Switzerland, a nondescript building behind frosted glass. No signage, no staff, just a retinal scanner and a vault door 2 meters thick. Philip Grantham adjusted his cufflinks as the final lock disengaged. Inside the vault, climate-controlled drawers, No artifacts, no gold, just paper, receipts, copies, ledgers spanning 5 decades, each tagged in identical gray folders, each linked to people who had never existed.
They all believed this was about one sketch, one dead girl, one scandal.
Grantham removed a folder labeled Opal, AE 1985 to 1993. Inside, accession numbers. 5 of them had just been flagged by the British Museum's Review Committee. 7 remained untouched.
History belongs to those who can afford to maintain it.
He powered on a satellite uplink, typed a single sentence, reposition assets, phase 2 begins, then closed the terminal, no name, no signature. He turned to a small archival box marked E. Voss 2024, untouched, unopened. He placed it on a steel shelf beneath a row of similar names and walked out. 3 weeks later, the Raphael sketches were removed from Gallery 17. No public ceremony, no press alert, just a silent team of gloved staff wheeling a sealed crate through a service hallway, the same way they had arrived decades before, quietly forged, quietly erased. The press had moved on, another war, another celebrity scandal, another leak somewhere louder. But within the museum, everything had changed. Trust had fractured, staff resigned, donors withdrew, and yet the building remained. Stone does not apologize. On a windswept evening in March, the Voss Institute for Provenance Research was announced, jointly funded by 2 EU academic partners and a private endowment from an anonymous cultural donor. It wasn't hard to guess who.
She wanted transparency, not revenge. She got neither, but this is close.
The unveiling plaque read, "In memory of Eleanor Voss," for those who chose to look closer. Later that night, Oliver stood outside the Institute's glass facade, collar up against the wind, watching the light shine through the archive wing. He had declined all interviews, turned down 2 book deals, vanished from social media, not out of fear, out of exhaustion.
The truth always leaves a stain. Sometimes you're just the cloth that gets used.
Isla still consulted, still taught, but she locked her office now, never used the same route home twice. She never said why. Oliver never asked. Theo retired early, a small pension, no lectures, no statements, just silence, and a promise not to talk. Ren had not been charged. The inquiry stalled, the CPS declined to prosecute. Insufficient evidence, they said, but she would never teach again, and she knew it. As for Grantham, he remained a ghost. Interpol issued no warrant, the museum refused to cooperate, and his name faded quietly from official archives. Oliver reached into his coat and pulled out Eleanor's last notebook, scorched edges, broken spine, but legible. He placed it gently into the Institute's donation slot, sealed in an acid-free case.
She gets the last word.
In the Museum of Truth, it's not the relics that define a legacy, it's who dares to label them correctly. The end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, ring the bell, and tell your friends about My Listening Library.